and whoever is late, and that's the way it goes. So welcome to our second session of Text and Context, where we do a little bit of a deep dive into some of the texts that Kol Nashim is doing this season. And so we're going to start today we're going to look at the text of Baruch She'asani Isha, Bless Who Made Me a Woman, by a deceased Israeli poet Esther Raab, who, let me see, I have her dates here somewhere. Oh, there we go. She was born in 1894, died in 1982. This poem was written when she was in her 70s, which is kind of interesting. So to start us off, I'm going to share my screen. And let me just move my windows around. Yeah, that's on top. So.
Leah, could you repeat her birth date, please?
1894.
Okay.
To 1980.
1894 to 1982. And she wrote this song in 1969, so she was 73. Okay, so let's share this. And you guys should be seeing the text of the poem, the translation and the transliteration.
We are.
I'm just going to enlarge the window. I guess I can't because that's all of you that are there. So I'm just going to leave this up right now, and we're going to play. I'm going to play the world premiere recording that we made last year. So hopefully you can hear this. Can you hear it? So not too bad, right? Not too bad at all. So I'm going to, so my first question, and this is, there's a few of us here. I can see everybody on the screen. So if you're showing your picture, you can just raise your hand if you want to speak, and if not, you can use the little icon on the bottom. So Nili set the poem, and how is what she did with the words different than the poem itself? Yeah, Anne, don't forget to unmute.
She has repetition, so blessed is he who made me a woman comes
Back, right?
again and again. Igulim, igulim, that phrase is repeated, layered on top of itself.
Right.
So I think it changes the emphasis of the whole poem.
It does. It really does, and we'll talk about that as we work our way through. So I'm going to unshare for a second and share a different document with you. Okay, and here we go. This is what I'm sharing. I just need to move. Okay, so you see the colored word. Yeah, we'll get there. So I found an article from Haaretz in 2007, 25 years after she died. And so some of these quotes I thought were really interesting. And obviously they had not looked at this particular song in making, in looking the quotes about her. And so the emphasis of the article is that she prefers masculine men and feminine men and masculine women. Not clear at this point in time, and I think we discussed it at the last time we looked at this, whether or not she was a lesbian. She was married a couple of times, but a couple of quotes that I pulled out, and they don't say when these quotes from her are. But I love this quote. I give birth to songs like a hen laying eggs. Sometimes a whole round song comes out. It comes out almost unconsciously. And after a week when I read, I wonder if I really wrote it. And so I want you to remember, those of you who either attended or watched the session on Everybody Says Don't, and sometimes very particular choices of words, which we looked at. And so when I marked up, this was really interesting for me to find after I marked up and I was thinking about the sounds and this and that. And so unconscious on many levels. And she says, and again, no dates were given for any of these quotes. I've never written songs or poems for anyone, only for myself. I was born a poet and entered poetry with both feet. I suffered no hesitations. Now, she is a contemporary of Shlonsky and Natan Alterman and Leah Goldberg, who were the great mainstream poets of the time in Israel. She is the first Tzabar poet. She was born in Israel and is the first one who was born in Israel. She did not write the mainstream. If you look at any of the poetry of Leah Goldberg and Natan Alterman and Shlonsky, it's all with rhymes. It's got a particular traditional use of language. And so she was never considered part of the pantheon. And Dana Olmert, who teaches in the Hebrew Literature Department of Hebrew University, at least she did in 2007, says, Esther Raab was a great poet, I like her inherent tendency to break boundaries, her daring to write in free rhythm, the fact that she celebrates her sexuality, that it has a lot of power. She's not modest and does not try to present herself as modest and delicate. She does not play the normative game expected of women. It has an inner freedom, and it is amazing when you think about it in the historical context. In a sense, she is Yona Wallach, who is a current freestyle poet, Yona Wallach's great-grandmother. She does not try to write as others write, and she does not try to write in standard Hebrew. For her, norms and standards are things that are meant to be dismantled. Her suspicion of normativeness is not the result of ignorance or lack of choice. It is a conscious choice, which seems to contradict the quote from Raab, who says that the poems spring from her fully made. So I think there's a little bit of a contradiction there of, you can make conscious choices, but hang on to your thoughts. Let's finish these quotes, and then again, a quote from Dana: the practice of writing has led Raab almost inevitably to touch on questions of gender identity, what it means to be a woman writer in a culture in which women do not write. Okay, Leah Goldberg was lauded as the first big female poet in Israel. And she arrives in Israel before the war in the late 1930s, where women do not write, especially in Hebrew, a sacred language whose use is considered a male privilege. And keep in mind that Israel was and continues to be much more macho than the United States is now. And Raab says, and again, I wonder what the timing of this was, because I suspect that this was before she wrote Baruch She'asani Isha. Poetry is the masculine side of me, Raab declared. My foundations are not feminine. I write male songs. If I was born again, I would want to be born a man. I do not like to be submissive. A man can fight back. He just gives a punch in the teeth. So that's these quotes, and you know, if you want to chime in, and yeah, Claudia, you had your hand up.
Yes, the very last paragraph is the opposite of the very first paragraph. I am taken with bearing eggs, birthing eggs. I'm just taken by that. It is so feminine, and I picture it. And then the last one is poetry is the masculine side of me. So she's dual, both.
Yeah, she's dual, and this is she was very attached to her father. She had 3 brothers and grew up doing all the boy things. They lived out, you know, in the countryside. Adored her father, despised her mother. Her mother was sickly, often spent time in bed. There was a family friend who Raab was very taken with, who her mother called that she-man.
Huh.
Okay, who was a woman who dressed, yes, Lenore.
So it occurs to me she also could be not just, but speaking against the traditional submissive, weakly, sickly, pale, passive, feminine
Patriarchy.
Yeah, and it's also
a very weak matriarchal figure, and talking about femininity, giving life, giving, you know, the urge to live as a masculine thing, when in fact it's a female capacity.
Well, and I think it's also, we have to think of the period. You know, she was born at the late 1900s, and so to me, it's shocking, as we've talked about Baruch She'asani Isha, how very contemporary the message is for us, and how very personal we can make it. So yeah, I find myself once again coming back to my thought that perhaps she was gay and didn't know it, or there just wasn't a framework for that at the time. Barb, you wanted to say, don't forget to unmute.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, the idea that she says she just sort of hatches the poems. They're there, and she's iconoclastic. she could just be doing it, hatching it as an iconoclast. It's sort of her nature is to go against the norm without having to have a tremendous amount of thought about it. It's just so inborn and ingrained in her. That's one thought. The other is she's 77 or 73 years old when she's writing this poem. First of all, well, late 60s was sort of a time of consciousness when more women are exploring the sexuality rather than just being told that you are a woman.
Not in Israel. Not in Israel.
It still wasn't.
You look at pictures of female soldiers in Israel in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, they still wore skirts.
No, they wore mini skirts. You couldn't sit down in those skirts.
Yeah, but I just, I guess because that was, I'm 74, so I can sort of relate to somebody at that stage of life sort of thinking, I wish I was a little girl again. I wish I could do some of those things. I wish I could play. On the other hand, her, the igulim is so feminine. So I think she really did not quite know what she was. I think she really had a lot of internal conflict in her. Maybe she was gay and really wasn't sure what to do with it. It doesn't mean that she couldn't admire the men, but just trying to, or at least, in terms of their physiques or whatever else. But I think she had a lot of internal conflict at this point of her, seeing the downside of her life that she was.
That's why I said there's no dates on the quotes from her. And I wonder when those things were said, because certainly Baruch She'asani Isha is a woman in her maturity looking back at her life as a woman and saying, I love being a woman. Yeah. With all that entailed. Somebody else wanted to, Lenore.
It was me, of course. I don't see so much of the conflict. We've had this conversation before. I don't see it as so much as conflict as this, that maybe she has always sensed the plurality of gender and of her own identity being a broader thing than society wanted her to think that it was. Maybe she's always had this different awareness. People have always had this. It isn't because of where they were or when they lived. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
But not publicized. Here. Yeah, gender fluid. It's got a name because it's a real thing and it isn't brand new.
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about it.
Right.
Well, and keep in mind also the article is written in 2007. Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the issues that I have when I attend poetry classes by these professors is that they have this analysis and they've decided what it means. And obviously that must be what it means. And so on that note, let's go up to the poem itself. And so I've broken it up into pieces that Nili broke it into. And just as one aside on what Anne mentioned at the beginning about repeating sections, and we will see next month when we look at the text of Valley, that composers have different ways of interacting with texts. Some of them compose straight form, as we saw with the poem that Susan Brown set for us, and it was like, this is how many words are in the poem, and this is it. That you go linearly. So Nili is struck, of course, by this opening here. Baruch She'asani Isha, She'ani Adama va'adam v'tzela raka. And so I was very struck, and I mentioned this to you in rehearsal with this sh, and ts kind of fits into that sh, that fits into here. And, Hebrew has a lot of ahs, but look how many ahs there are. Oh, I missed one. In this opening 2.5 lines, there's so much v'tzela raka. And that struck me. And I have a challenge translating this. The official translation, and I stayed with that, is a tender rib. But if you think about, first of all,
it's Adam, taking the rib from Adam.
yes, of course, taking the rib. Yes, we have Adama, earth, or humus, as I translated it. Yes, and Adam, and the rib. So, of course, the association is biblical. In addition to the fact that it's a feminization, as we've said, of the masculine prayer of Baruch She'asani Isha, blessed who did not make me a woman.
Right.
But yet Raka, just like when we talk about dak minadak, Raka is soft. Yeah. But a rib is not soft.
No, it can be tender.
Well,
You get punched in it.
if you get, it can be sore. It can be sore. So there's something about that which led me to think, and I bolded these. I didn't keep the Hebrew on this page just so that it wouldn't be too crowded. And I wanted these are how the lines lined up in the poem, and so the bolds, because notice that these bolded things they kind of are left out. Yeah, they're separate words, and I think that somehow she wants to call attention to them, whether she deliberately did this or this is how it popped out of her. So, as Anne said, Baruch She'asani Isha, Sheasani Isha. So that comes here, and then I'm not going to stick it in because then it won't line up.
What is the literal translation of Baruch She'asani?
Blessed is he who made me a woman, that I am earth and Adam and a tender rib.
So I am Adam, I am from the earth.
I am from
necessarily Adam, but I am
earth,
I am Adam.
Adam.
But Adam is also a person.
Adam is a person. Adama is earth, and that's why, because of the connection between Adam and Adama, if you remember, in the YouTube, I translated it as humus and human,
right,
because of that sound, the onomatopoeia, and the tender rib. It's just I don't have a final opinion on tender rib, but it just hops out to me. It always sounds a little bit, and as you saw when Nili said it, right? Baruch She'asani Isha, Sheasani Isha, Shani Adama ve'Adam ve'tzela Raka. It's somehow.
There's another thing, Leah, that's striking me, in that, the rib is hard, and it's biblically it was taken from Adam and created into woman. What is woman? Woman is soft. Woman is tender. So I'm taking this rib that was hard and I've made it tender.
Nice. I like that.
Does that tender have any other meanings? That the Hebrew word that we're calling tender?
The word means soft. Soft. Rach means soft.
Rach means soft, yeah.
Nothing like delicate or malleable or, well, soft, I guess.
Soft. Yeah. I like Barb's. Now, and we talked about, this is the wrong, blessed, are you, right? We talked about Sheasani and Sheasitani.
Right.
And it occurred to me, so one of the things that we talked about is that he who made me, and blessed are you who made me, is a much more personal relationship with Creator, whether that's God, whether that's her father, whether that's whatever, I don't know, whatever belief system she had. But it occurred to me as I looked at this, that asitani igulim. And so we go from the to the e in igulim. Okay, blessed you who made me circles upon circles. And again, igul is a circle, but it's also a round, a round thing. So again, the translation, I struggled with what word to use for igulim. And those of you who have not been at any Kol Nashim rehearsals, so Nili mentioned to us that she envisioned circles of dancers, and hence, and I will play the recording again at the end, igulim, 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 kind of circles rounding within each other. So this leads into this section. The Baruch She'asani doesn't come back until right here. And so we go from sh, 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 which if you scan your eye down for the yellows, they keep coming back. And now, and here I missed this one. Let me change this green. And this was all of the gul, 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 gul. Gal, gal, mazal, gule, perot shenatatali. Oh, yeah, here. Yeah, so we have the gul, gul, and then the gal, gal. Come on. I was just trying to look at, what was it? Because she said these things popped out of her head as almost, and we don't have notes. Same thing in with composers. Beethoven kept notebooks, and his scores are marked up, and he changed things, and we can see how his thoughts evolved. For composers like Mozart, famously, Mozart would be writing one composition while he was thinking of another one in his head. And there are no notes, there are no corrections, there are nothing. It just kind of like, who is it who springs out? Athena springs out of the forehead of Zeus, fully formed. So we go from the shisha, sha, 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 to gil, 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 il, gil, 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 gil. Yeah, so galgal and mazalo.
It's now the consonants rather than the vowels.
The consonants, although there's still sh, and then a, ke galgale, mazalot igule perot, natat, I, this evolution of the different vowels. And so what kind of going back and forth between looking at the sounds and looking at the content. So you made me circles. What are these circles? Where does she go? She goes from the orbit of the planets to the rounds or the spheres.
To fertility.
Fruit, fertility.
Life cycle.
Life cycle that you gave me, living flesh. And what does the flesh do? It blossoms. And reminding you that when we talk about a girl, a prepubescent girl, she's talked that, when she starts to grow breasts, we say that she's budding, right? That she has buds. So that blossoms and made me like a plant of the field that bears fruit.
And yet she never had children.
She never had children, but she loved the fact that she could have had, that her body was made to have. And I remember.
I think it's irrelevant that she didn't have children. She still has the capacity to breathe life into life and create cycles of her own.
Cycles, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the circles, she chose the word.
All circles,
Igulim, she saw the circles, and then what does the circles mean to her? Well, she gives the orbits of the planet, but wow, it's the blossoming, it's the fertility, it's the.
And there are lots of ways to give birth other than by having children.
Right.
Yeah, but I think she's very much though. Well, yeah, I think if you're talking about basar chai, and basar is flesh, but you also, you're buying basar, you're buying meat. Basar chai, you would also say, if you go to a restaurant and your steak is underdone, you would say, is it chai or na? So it's very, I think, very fleshly. And by the way, those of you who are not speaking, feel free to either jump right in or raise a hand, or I don't think anybody put anything in the chat, but if you want to just, where is it? throw something in the chat, I will open that window so that I can share any thoughts that anybody would prefer to write rather than speak. So let's just listen to it once. This whole section. Baruch She'asani Igulim kegalgale mazalot ucheigule perot shenatata li basar chai poreach ve'asitani ketzemach hasade nose pri. So, like the Vitzela Raka, poreach stands out, right? It just, after all the poreach, blooming, really sticks out. And then ve'asitani ketzemach hasade nose pri. Baruch She'asani Isha, right? It kind of reflects that the sound. So I can really see why Nili felt that she needed to put in another Baruch She'asani Isha at this spot here after the Nose Pri. Yes, Claudia, then Anne.
So starting with the orbs of the planets to the bear's fruit, she feels such a part of the universe. And I said last time, it's very Kabbalistic that it's all one. She's feeling this oneness. The eggs that she drops, she can give life to living flesh and blossoms. And she returns to Adam, the plant of the field.
Yeah, it's also
Adama.
very...
Adama, but the Adam is the humanity.
Yeah, Anne, you had, Anne was going next.
Yeah, the Shenatata li basar chai poreach, Nili set that to be like, it rises to that point, the sun.
Yeah.
So, it's set to be this overflowing sort of, life-giving force that she's emphasizing.
And it also occurs to me at a time where the monthly cycle was the curse and hide it away, right? Hide it away, and nobody should know. And really, if we look at Native cultures and the celebration of womanhood, right, and the moon festivals of fertility, and of what a marvelous gift this is, and she takes it and puts it on par with the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Can I just go back to that I am earth and Adam, humus and human? I mean, the earth and Adam, Adama va'adam, is like male and female. So by using the word human, you're capturing both of them.
Yeah. And it just, it just occurred to me, and that Adama is all of the earth, and Adam is the person, and Sela Raka is the small piece.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So out from in, and I'm sure that Adama ve'Adam, I mean, if you reverse it, She'ani Adam ve'Adama, right? And then Adama ve'Adam, the rhythmic choices that just happened. So he made me like a plant of the field that can bear fruit. And this is a perspective also, as those of us who are at the other end of the cycle, as she was, and it's bittersweet knowing that the choice is gone. Right? I mean, we had many, many years where we said, I don't want to get pregnant. I had my children, I'm done. I'm using birth control, and we're preventing, but I could if I wanted to. Right? I could if I wanted to. How many of us got there where our youngest child was now 10 or 11 or 12, and it's like, maybe one more, I could still, I'm the oldest of 5. When I was 18, my youngest brother was 10. There's 8 years between me and my youngest brother. And my mother said, I think maybe I want to do one more. And I said, knock yourself out, but I'm not babysitting or changing diapers. That put an end. All right.
That's your Israeli part.
Yeah. So after we talk about made me bear fruit, again, Nili goes back and emphasizes, Baruch She'asani Isha, She'ani Adama ve'adam ve'tzela raka. I'm remembering the wonderfulness of the fruitfulness, the wonderfulness of the circles. Another thought that occurred to me in this idea was, does everybody know what the Fibonacci series is?
Yeah.
Right, where you have it's a numerical series of 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, where each number is the sum of the previous 2 digits.
Right. You see that
And
in
that
plants.
proportion shows up everywhere in nature.
Right.
It shows up in flower petals. It shows up in the spirals of snails. It shows up, Claudia, you put that fiddler fern with the. It shows up. The Fibonacci series shows up everywhere, and it's one of those the oneness of creation. Whether you believe there was a creator or not, there's something miraculous about the unification of creation with these things that we see. And so now she moves on to the specificness of being a woman. Shekir'e ananecha machalikim kemeshi. So we've had the shushes, we've had the lululs, and now we have the k, shekir, and with a little bit of the sh. Shekir'e ananecha machalikim kemeshi al panai virechai va'ani gdola umvakeshet liot yalda bochia mitza'ar וצוחקת ושרה בקול דק מן הדק. So now we have a little bit of a conflict. I'm grown, and we have here the section, this section here is really the most erotic section of the poem. And so whose clouds? Well, you know, I mean, what else can we think about clouds other than clouds, right? If you imagine the wisps of the clouds in the sky, and maybe she's fantasizing, you know, that the wisps of the cloud slide like silk. Machalikim kemeshi. It has this ik, k, yeah? Slide like silk over my face, al panai virechai. And this section, Nili writes it imitatively. Shekir'e, shekir'e, anane, ananecha, machalikim kemeshi. And then al panai virechai, almost breathless. Va'ani gdola umvakeshet liot yalda. And here's another place where why? Gdola, I am big.
I am grown. Yeah.
So you would think, well, grown is the translation, but the literal
word means
the word means I'm big.
Big.
Okay, my
And
kids.
I want to be a child.
When you talk about adults in Israel, you talk about yeladim v'gdolim. Sometimes you talk about mevugarim, older people, but that's for seniors. And so my son, whose English was his first language, would ask about the bigs. Where are the bigs?
Oh.
Okay. So she says, Ani gdola, I'm big. So wouldn't you think that the opposite of that would be small?
Katan.
Ktana. Umvakeshet liot ktana. Small. Or va'ani isha, I'm a woman. Umvakeshet liot yalda. And so I think that isha, well, you're losing the melody, right? Va'ani isha umvakeshet liot yalda. Well, you can see why she didn't do that, right? Va'ani gdola umvakeshet liot ktana. Well, you get the kata, kata, kata. So I think that what spoke to her was that la al, ani gdola umbakeshet liot yalda. Yeah, again, we have those lamedim coming in. And what does the yalda do? Bochia. Now, bochia, bocha is I'm crying. Bochia is, I don't even know really how to
funny construct.
It's a funny construct. And again, I think that the what spoke to her, bocha versus bochia, those e's, and that extra syllable, mitza'ar. I mean, she could have said, bocha mi'etziv. I'm crying from sadness. But she doesn't, it's not, she says, mitza'ar, sorrow. Because as a child, everything is just so tragic or amazingly, right? And you can just imagine, I mean, she I think yalda, this is not a yalda really. This is a prepubescent,
yeah,
you know, who is crying one moment, bochia mitzar, v'tzocheket.
He's a preteen.
V'shara bekol.
Sounds like me as a teenager.
Right?
Yeah, it
It's
sounds like
very,
my granddaughter is preteen.
Yeah, it's very, so I think it's all, and going back to the plant, right? It's very much on that cusp between just about to be fertile and she herself is on the other end of no longer fertile. And how wonderful is that space in the middle. Dak min hadak, again, as I mentioned in rehearsal, challenge to translate, because dak, it doesn't mean thin, but it also means like a small voice, you know, but not squeaky small.
But she's shara b'kol, which you would assume is a kol ram, that it's a loud voice.
Right.
Now she's saying shara b'kol dak min hadak, soft,
Laughing and singing aloud.
You would think loud. A child wouldn't be singing in a voice.
And singing aloud is really a poetic license, because, and I'm singing, I would almost say with a voice.
But the b'kol is with a voice, but you would assume that it's b'kol ram.
Right, because you said, when you say out loud, you say b'kol ram.
But it's,
well, there's
but here she's suggesting it's a soft voice.
Yeah, let Anne.
There's the biblical reference to Kol Damama Vadaka, so the still small voice.
Yes. That's exactly it. It's a still small. It's a small. So it's not really thinner than thin, but
Still small voice.
Maybe it's an inner voice if it's a still small voice.
well, but it's not still, because she doesn't say still, you know,
Still meaning quiet.
quiet. Yeah. So it's smaller
If you
than.
think of the wording in
Well, I just wanted to say,
it's
Hang on, Barb. Let Anne finish. Yeah.
so this is the story is Elijah.
Right.
God is appearing not in the thunder, not in the torrent, not in all the noise out there, but in this tiny concentrated moment
Stillness.
of stillness. So it's incredibly intense.
Yeah, and we know that she is familiar. Okay, this is not, none of these references are, I mean, they're accidents of her subconscious, but they're pulled out of there as an Israeli scripture and liturgy is just part of. I mean, I knew a whole bunch of songs that until I came to the States, I had no idea that the texts were liturgical. They were just songs that I knew. And so once she finishes with singing in a still small voice, again, Baruch She'asani Isha, Sheasani Isha, She'ani Adama ve'adam ve'tzela raka. Okay, but really, in the poem, she continues with a voice smaller than small, like the smallest cricket, which now smaller than small makes more sense if you're going to the smallest cricket. And again, the sh, remember I said that ts is part of that sound of sh, ts. So now we take the k from here, and we take the ts, and we get ki, tsar, zair. Ki, tsar, zair, b'makelat kruvecha hana'ala, ktana shebiktanot. And here's the ktana, right? Here was the gdola, and here comes the ktana. Ktana shebiktanot, smallest of the small. Ani misacheket leraglecha bor'i. And again, bor'i. Okay, so these
Creator.
are individually in the Hebrew poem. They are individual lines. So tsela raka and poreach va'ani gdola, na'ala, elevated, sublime, leraglecha bor'i, at your feet, my creator. So we're almost out of time. I do want to play the recording again. Any additional final comments, Anne?
So I see the poem as starting with the small rib, and then it blossoms and it becomes fertile and full of fruit, and then it gradually descends into a tiny, like a tiny
Cricket.
point.
Yeah.
But somehow by Nili incorporating, coming back to the repetition of Baruch She'asani Isha, it never quite gets to that tiny point. And I like it better the way she's done it, that it doesn't reduce it so much.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this was a conversation. This was the conversation that we had, and I'll play it for you in a minute. If you remember, the last time that Baruch She'asani happens, right here, we have the modulation, right? We go up, and Baruch She'asani Isha, Sheasani Isha, She'ani Adama ve'Adam. Remember, we do that pause there because that is the dominant of the major relative. And so she doesn't end it as she could, I'm at your feet, but she ends it in that you made me a woman with a big, and we had some conversations back and forth because she always wanted that big ending, but it didn't make musical sense until we figured out, and then I had to go over it and go, wait a minute. She wrote that dominant in there, but if we just fly right past it, we don't understand why we get to that harmony at the end. So let me read you the poem, and then I will put up the video of our virtual performance. So I'm just going to read it straight through as Esther Raab wrote it. Baruch She'asani Isha, She'ani Adama va'Adam v'Tzela Raka. Baruch She'asitani Igulin Igulin, כגלגלי מזלות וכעיגולי פירות, שנתת לי בשר חי פורח, ועשיתני כצמח השדה נושא פרי, שקרעי ענניך מחליקים כמשי, על פניי וירחי, ואני גדולה ומבקשת להיות ילדה, בוכייה מצער, וצוחקת, ושרה בקול דק מן הדק. כצרצר זעיר במקהלת קרוביך הנעלה, קטנה שבקטנות, אני משחקת לרגלך בוראי. Right? It has a lovely music in it. So I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to, just before I do this, put the link of the YouTube in our chat. Let me make sure that everyone can see this. For those of you who want to share it and watch it again afterwards, there is a translation in the chat. If you've enjoyed this program, please spread the word. 54 people viewed last month, and they didn't get to come and talk today. If you're watching this on YouTube, I promise I will read all the comments and respond to them in Facebook. Oh, sorry, if you're watching it on Facebook. If you're watching it on YouTube, it's too late to join the conversation, but you're welcome to put comments in the window. And of course, this is presented by Kol Nashim under the aegis of the Colorado Hebrew Chorale. And if you'd like to support our organization by making a donation at www.coloradohebrewchorale.org, we would be happy to get it. So we're going to go full screen, and here is our masterpiece. Yeah, very, very proud of our recording, very proud of all of you who participated. So unless anybody has anything else to add, that's it for us tonight. And I will see you next month for another conversation, except for those of you who I will see tomorrow night at Colorado Hebrew Chorale rehearsal and Thursday at Kol Nashim rehearsal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Bye, Tov, everybody.
Bye, let's
I love the Kol Dak Bin Dak, that still small voice. That was all right. Bye, everybody. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.